Hi everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums. Today I'm going to show you how I decorated the mini album using the paper from Carta Bella called Honeybee. This collection came out in the fall of 2025 and I just thought it was a beautiful collection. So I picked up the collection, the solids, a bunch of other things. I do have linked in the description box my coffee file. So if you want to see everything I used and get a cutting guide, you can go to my coffee shop and there is a link there. It's available for a small donation. I will be going through the measurements on decorating it, but there is another video showing you how I constructed the mini album. So I'm going to start with the cover and then go through page by page and show you how to make this album. So let's get started. Okay, to start with the cover for the base. Now, of course, the album is black. So I have a cream color piece of cardstock from my stash. You could use what is in the solids, but I don't want to use it all up for something that only a little teeny bit is going to show. So I took this cream colored cardstock and inked around the edges with antique white. I also have a piece of paper from the 6x6 collection. This is 2 inches by 6 inches. And then I have this piece. Now I have not cut off this, I just peeled it off. What I think I'm going to do is cut some of this so I can use that because most of it's going to be covered up. So I will be adhering that onto my 6 1/4 by 8 3/8 cream color cardstock base. I'm going to do all of this and then put it aside and not put it on the book until the very end. I don't want anything to happen to it. So that's going to be the very base of the cover. There are going to be so many layers. I also have 2 pieces of chipboard. This is 4 by 5 and this is 3 by 5. I've already put some double-sided permanent adhesive on and I am going to cover these. I'm going to wrap these. So I have a piece that is 6 by 7. I'm going to just peel off the backing of this and I'm just going to eyeball it. Doesn't need to be perfect. I'm going to wrap it as I'm going to, the same way you would wrap an album cover. I'm going to do this piece. I know I don't have what am I trying to say? I know I don't have tape all the way to the end, so I'll supplement it from glue. I mean, it's just going to be one piece in this whole base. Oops, this is scooting away from me. All right, I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm going to go in fast motion just to get this covered. All right, and as I finish wrapping this, I'm going to give you some measurements. So on top of the wrapped chipboard, you're going to need 2 pieces, one for each one. The sizes are 3 7/8 by 4 7/8, and one that is 4 7/8 by 2 7/8. And then on top of that, you'll have some black cardstock, one that is 3 5/8 by 4 5/8, and one that is 2 5/8 by 4 5/8. So go ahead and cut those out. I did ink around the edges of the cream cardstock and layer those on top of the chipboard. Okay, so you see I've cut the hole out of this paper and attached that to the top. I'm going to put that aside for now. I also decided I wanted a little more pattern and I liked having this beige with the white, with the black detail. So I cut this piece which is 5 by 7. And I'm going to attach that onto a 5 1/8 by 7 1/8 piece of black cardstock. So ever so slight a margin. 5 1/8 by 7 1/8. Just enough to differentiate this from the surface. So this is going to go centered on the paper, on what will be the cover. And then after I do this, I realize I probably made a mistake. And yes, I am eyeballing this. Now, if you're not sure of that, go ahead and use a T-square and a ruler and just make sure it all works. All right, so now we have, so the idea is to have this piece and then this on top of it. The problem is this is 5 inches wide, and so is this. So I don't like the fact that that ends there. So what I'm going to do is cut this in half and pull it out a little. So just so it doesn't end right at that same line. I don't like that does that. And I also need to, by the way, add some layers of chipboard underneath this, because this will sit on here. So I want some layers of chipboard just so this is not hanging in the air. So I will go ahead and layer that, probably wrap it in some cardstock and just tuck it underneath. You could also use foam adhesive if you want, but that would be a lot. So I'm going to do that as well. So this is a 3x4 cut apart, and I've got a 3 1/8 by 4 1/8 piece of black cardstock. So I'll put that on there. Although I see this cut apart has a weird margin, so I'm going to cut that down just so it looks more even on here. And then I have this piece, which is from the 6x6 pattern paper, and this measures 3 1/2 by 4 1/2. And I did ink around the edges because some of the edges were already inked, so I inked around the edges. So let me go ahead and do those things, and I'll show you where we are. Okay, let me show you what I have so far. So we have that all adhered. And so here's where I cut this in half. I also added a strip of the green paper from the 12x12. It's 2.5 inches tall and 3/4 of an inch wide, because most of it'll be hidden, so I didn't need to add much. So I'm going to put that, I'm going to center it on the page. 8.5, so 4 1/4 is the center. So I'm going to put it, so it's going to be about 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the white. Because like I said, I didn't want it to, I'm going to grab my T-square. I didn't want it to be even with that paper. And I am going to add a little bit of double-sided tape just so it will adhere, while the glue that I mainly I'm going to use the liquid glue, but this will help keep it together. I like the 2 glue method. My theory is that while one is drying, the other one is holding it, and if one were to for some reason not stay, then you've got the other one. All right, so I've got glue and adhesive. I know my center. And like I said, 1/4 inch from the edge. So there's one. Add glue to this. So I don't add glue on top of my adhesive. All right, that's on. That's on. And I'll burnish that. Yeah, it's going to make this album a little bit chunky, but that's okay. It's the cover. Okay, now that we've got that, so now I've already put on, so I wrapped, it was a piece of chipboard, and I added a thin layer of just thin chipboard, and then wrap that. I had to cut it down. They were 1-inch pieces. Just do 3/4 of an inch pieces. That's all you need. And I will add some double-sided adhesive to this and to that. So again, that will adhere while everything else is, while the glue is drying. You could also use hot glue if you want. And I'll add some here, which is just going to attach to this piece. There we go. Nope. But that's the bad part about having the double-sided adhesive, is it wasn't exactly centered. And that double-sided adhesive, there we go. Okay, so I like it. It's got a lot of interest. It's got a lot of texture. Another thing you could do, if you don't want so many layers, you don't have to. But another thing you could also do is, instead of wrap this with chipboard, wrap it with fabric, like a muslin or a linen, an off-white or a tea-dyed. That would be really cool. Okay, so a couple things we could do is add a couple of elements. If I had the brads, I might add something like that. I really don't like using buttons. And then I know there is a chipboard piece. I don't know if I am going to do that, but I'm gonna revisit this after I get it all done. I mean, you really need to figure it out. I'd like something soft, like either some ribbon or some flowers. I might make flowers after it's all done, and I have some scraps I can use to use my flower dies. But that is all I'm going to do for now. I'll see what I have left. I'm going to sort of keep this in mind for the cover. Or maybe that. I don't know. I'm not sure yet, but I like it. I like the dimension to it, and I think it's going to make a good cover. So now that we've got that done, I'll set it aside and move on to the rest of the book. All right, let's decorate the inside front cover, because we've already done the front cover. Now, a couple of things. I've already put magnets. There's some Scotch tape on top just to keep them from coming off. I think these were the 3/8 inch magnets from Total Elements. The other streaks that you see was ATG, because what I'll do is I'll cut my paper and then ATG it just so I know where everything goes before I film. So if you're wondering what that is what that is. So I'm going to start on the left side of this flap that we have on the front cover. I'm going to put this piece of plain green coordinating solids, and it's 6 by 5 1/4. This is going to go up at the top and close to that score line. So let me go ahead and glue that. Some of these I have inked around the edges just lightly with antique linen distress ink, but not all of them. Just if it looked uneven. All right, so this I'm putting about a 1/16 of an inch away from that score line. I want that score line to, I want the score to still work. I want to be able to open the book with no problem. But I want to get away from the left side of the paper, so I had to pull it up and put it back down and make sure it's straight. So there's that. I'm not going to burnish it till I get everything else down. So now this came from the 6 by 6, and this is why I like using, and this, by the way, is 6 inches by 3 inches. This is why I like using the 6 by 6 paper as well. Number one, I didn't have to cut it. too much. And number two, it's got that smaller print, so that will do well in certain areas. So I'm putting it up against that score and making sure it is even on the bottom. And again, the reason why I don't use double-sided adhesive is because I want to have some movement. Now I also cut a piece for the far left side. It is a little bit smaller than 1/4 of an inch by 8 3/8. I'll put that on in a bit. But first I'll move on to that center section. So for that, it's going to sort of be the opposite. I'm using the other piece of that paper, and I told you I inked the edges. See, some of it already has sort of distressing, but not all of it, and especially if you were to cut it, I want it to look even all around. Luckily, this antique linen really matches nicely. I don't know if when they made it, they knew that it would match with antique linen, but in any case. And this is 6 by 3 as well. So this I am going to place, do I want it over here? Yeah, this is going to go over to the score line on the left side of the page. And this is 6 by 5 3/8. Again, it's that plain green. And this is going to go down at the bottom. Line it up with the one in front of it. And just make sure it's straight. Okay, that looks good to me. Okay, and as well, I've still got more to put in there, but I've got two pieces. It's the green pattern, and one is, well, they're both 3 3/8 by 8 3/8. 3 3/8 by 8 3/8. One I'm going to put over with the pattern, the white background on the flap. I like having this tone-on-tone green. It's a pretty pattern, I think, and I like this with the flowers. So that'll go over on the flap when the flap is closed. And then this with the green is going to go, and again it's 3 3/8 by 8 3/8. This is going to go on the inside flap with the green showing. And that sort of gives you room. You could journal on here, or you could add more photos on here. Gives you a couple of options. Okay, and then I know I have another one of these somewhere. Where the heck did it go? But one will go over here, and one is going to go here, and this is 1/4 of an inch by 8 3/8. Sorry if I was off screen. There we go. Trying to keep it even. And there's a little bit of glue showing. Now it is a glue that will dry clear. It will have a little bit of a sheen to it, so I try not to have it show so much. All right, now two things. Over here, I've got a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 photo mat, so that's going to go over here. And this one is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 is my guess. Yeah. and that's going to go here. Now there's a B here. I don't want to cover up the B, so I'm going to go down a little bit. But that gives you places to put photos, define photos, so you can put your 4x6 photo there and a 4x4 photo there. So I'm going to glue those down and find this piece, or cut another one. I know it's here somewhere, and put that down. And that is the front cover complete. All right, I said that was it, but that really isn't it. So here is that piece of paper here. This came from the ephemera titles. Not sure that that was the best purchase on my part, but I'm using it. I've ATG'd this because I'm not positive I want that here. I think I do. And if I do, I'm just going to glue it there. But I do know I want this here. So this I just glued onto some black cardstock, rounded the corners, just attached it down at the bottom so it's a little tuck spot. So that is the front cover complete, because of course we have the front cover, but I'm not going to attach it later. So now we can move on to the inside front cover. All right, so for the inside front cover, people have asked me why I don't cover this with cardstock, and I was like, well, because you usually cover it with pattern paper. In this case, we're going to do some paper piecing. So I did cut a piece of black cardstock, which is 6 3/8 by 8 3/8 to put on there. Now the cover is 6 1/2 by 8 1/2, so there's a little extra room of an extra border around the sides. All right, so first of all, I took out of the 12 by 12 paper, the one that has the writing on it, the green writing, and cut two pieces that are 1/2 inch by 6 3/8. I'm going to put one at the top and then one at the bottom. I did, because these were the dark green, I did ink around the edges with black, just around the perimeter. Now I'm going to go edge to edge, and I'll leave a little bit on the top. So there's one on the top, and here's one on the bottom. Paper piecing is a great way of utilizing your paper without using all of your paper, meaning that you'll still have, we're going to use photo mats, and therefore why use all my paper when I know I'm going to cover it with a photo mat? So anyhow, incidentally, this photo mat is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. I cut a piece of black cardstock 4 3/8 by 6 3/8, so there is a very slight 1/16 of an inch border around it. I do like to do that because I do like to give some emphasis to our photos. Now I also cut out of the 6 by 6 paper this strip of bees. It's 3/4 of an inch by 6. Now this is 6 3/8, so how am I going to make it work? I am simply going to cut this in half. So we'll cut it at 3. I liked the smaller size of the bees, so that's why I wanted to utilize it. So I am going to add glue and put it above the screen. So I'm going to go right up to the edge, leaving a 1/16 of an inch gap there. And then we'll do the same with this one. It'll go on the left-hand side, right up against, almost up against the edge. Since this isn't going to the edge, I'm not doing that with the bees, but I'm still having a 1/16 of an inch gap on the bottom. What are we going to do about this? I'll show you in a little bit. Now, I've cut these 1 inch, and they were by 8, but I'm going to cut it down. I just wanted to put those down before I figured out the size. So you do the same. Make sure you measure and find out what the size is. So mine is just about 6 3/8. So I'm going to cut both of these at the same time. I'll line up the tops, cut it 6 3/8. and one will go on the left side and one will go on the right side. But before I glue that, I want to see where we are and see where this photo mat's going to go. That'll work perfectly. That'll work perfectly. So I will glue these down. Okay, there's one. Here's two. Now again, if you know what photos you're going to put on, you can go ahead and put them. You may not necessarily need a photo mat, but of course I do like having the photo mats just because having a photo mat is the same reason of having a mat when you're matting pictures. It gives the eye a chance to rest before you get to the picture. Now this is going to fit perfectly right in sort of that black hole. So I am going to put glue on this. And adhere it. And I like it. Nice composition. And we're not done. Let me grab my paper towel because there was a little bit of glue here. Okay, and so then the last thing I was going to do with this is, I think I may wait till I do the next page, but I was going to add an element right on here, sort of touching the front. Let me do this next page and then just sort of see which one's going to go. All right, so for the front of page 1, see how different this looks if that's covered? Looks like a big gap. All right, let's work on this flap first. So for that, I'm going to combine, we've got this green, and I am going to be using a little cut apart. Where did it go? This one. Queen bees. We've got the little bees here. So queen bees is going to be on this cut apart. We'll do that in a second. But we're going to use the bees on this flower paper and to repeat this pattern that's going to go there. So this piece, I should know what this is. It is 4 inches by 7 7/8. So that is going to go on the left-hand side of this flap. And I may add another magnet to this flap. I'll show you why in a second, but let me put this down. Okie dokie. So there's a magnet here and a magnet here, and that's fine for right now, but I think I need a magnet right here just to keep this down, so I'll probably be adding that. But in the meantime, now let's put this little piece is 5/8 by 7 7/8. Just dry fitting it just to make sure. 5/8 by 7 7/8. Our pages are 8, so most of what I'm going to put down is going to be 7 7/8. So this will go alongside that. Again, we're repeating this pattern. One of the keys to any design, whether you're talking floral or room arranging or whatever, it's texture and repetition. So we're repeating some. And when I'm doing the book, I generally like to have this page coordinate with what we have there. It may not match exactly, but it's going to coordinate. All right, so I have this piece, which is an odd measurement. It's 2 3/8 by 3 1/2. 2 3/8 by 3 1/2, and this just came from the 12 by 12 paper. I'm putting that on top of a green piece. The green solid is 2 1/2 by 3 3/4. And that's going to go on to the black cardstock 2 5/8 by 3 7/8. Is that right? Yeah. I'm reading what I wrote down. Very small matte margin on this. And then we'll need something on the back side of this, but we don't need it on the complete back side because it's going to go here. So I just need a little bit here. And I have these bees. And they need to be 3 3/4 tall, and it's about 1/2 inch. 3 3/4 tall. And so that's going to go here just because just a smidgen of that is going to show. And we want it to look pretty. So that will go here. Oh, I like it. Now, I want to make sure I've got those bees showing. So what I'm going to do is add glue just to this part. Oh, do I want glue on the whole thing? I don't. I changed my mind. And the reason is if you add a photo to this, I want you to be able to tuck the photo under. Now, you probably won't add a photo, so I'm just going to add it over to here. But if you do, it'll be fine. So this will go here. I'm centering it on the page and having it so those bees stick out just a little bit. And I'll burnish. Okay, so there's that. Yes, I like it. Okay, so for this flap and the one on the inside, I need 2 pieces that are 2 5/8 by 7 7/8. I'm going to have the flowers showing. 2 5/8 by 7 7/8. And this one I'm going to have this paper, this pattern showing. Sometimes I like to have sort of a tone-on-tone on a small flap. Now, if you wanted to put a photo on it, it still would look fabulous. But if you wanted to journal on it, you still would be able to, because you'd still be able to write on here. So that's why I do that sometimes. Not always. It depends on how the page is looking. All right, let's burnish that. All right, so now we have here. So what I'm going to do for that is, so I have a 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 photo mat. I also have a 4 1/4 by 1/2 of this green paper. It's got the writing on it. This is from the 6 by 6, so it's very small. And then this is also from the 6 by 6, and it is 4 1/4 by 1 inch. I may need to cut this down, but this is going to go on this flap. We're covering up a magnet. It's going to go over, here's that flap, it's going to go over to the left-hand side of where that flap is, towards the flap, not on the flap. So I'm going to put this on, make sure it's straight on top and bottom, not overlapping my flap. And I did ink around the edges of that. I don't know if you can see that very well. All right, so now this will go on the bottom. And see, again, repetition. So that's the same as that. This will go on the bottom. I want it to line up with that. But you know what? Before I put these two on, I've cut this paper. It's the same as this. It is 7 7/8 tall by 3/8 wide. So this is going to go on the right side of the page. I'm going to turn the page sideways just so I can get a good look at it and make sure everything is straight on the page. There we go. I wanted to make sure I got the top of this lined up with there. So now we can put this down. The bottom of this needs to be lined up with these two pieces, and the side needs to be lined up with that. And then I've got this B paper, and you can tell it was from the 6x6 because I have a hole in it. But no fear, we will take care of that hole. So now that I know where everything needs to go, I know how much room I have. I want it to be lined up to the side of this and have the same margin showing. All right, so that looks good. We'll deal with this a little bit. This, I'm going to use this B paper, and I feel like I need to ink it a little bit because this came from the side of the paper. You see it's a little bit darker on the side because it already was, it's sort of vintagey already. Here's a fun fact. I have never been stung by a bee. And the reason is because, am I scared of them? Not so much now, but my brother is deathly allergic. You know, he has to carry his EpiPen. And I'm sort of curious if I'm allergic too. Oh well, doesn't matter. I haven't been stung. All right, so this should be 4 inches across. This is just a smidgen under. It's not 3 7/8. It's really 3 15/16 because actually this paper is a little bit more than 4, and it is 4.5 tall. So this is 4 3/8 tall. So I'm going to put this on the front. Whoops, I was going to add a magnet. Let me do that first. I'll add a magnet and then I will glue this down and then we'll finish the page. All right, I'm not sure which measurements I have given you and I have not, but to put on what actually is the base page, I have just some of this plain yellow ochre, whatever color you want to call it, 5 7/8 by 7 7/8. And the reason I don't mind having something plain is because we're going to add other elements to it. And then this way you can put whatever size photo mat you want on here. So that will go right onto the base page. I want it to be sort of close to the fold. And there we go. Got my burnishing tool, so there is that. And then for the pocket, the back of it, 3 7/8 by 4 3/8. So that will go there. And the good thing about this is it's sort of non-directional. So whichever way you have it, you'll be fine. So that'll go there. And that is also good because we're repeating the pattern. And for the pocket insert, it is just one piece of black cardstock that is 3 3/4 by 5 7/8. So on the front and the back, you'll add a piece of cream colored cardstock that is 3 5/8 by 4 3/4 for both of those. So I will put that there. And one on the back. And then we'll burnish. And aside from adding stickers or chipboard elements, that page is done. So this will give you room to add, like I say, journaling or photos into the pocket. So that'll close like that, and there we go with that page. All right, so for our final walkthrough on our front page, I added this from the chipboard elements, so that covers that hole. I like it. I like it a lot. I like how that came out, and of course this is open, so you still can tuck a photo in. This page opens like that. There is a bee sticker here. I may add something else here. Not sure yet. I'll wait till I get through most of the book. And then I added a flower sticker to the top of that. That opens like that. So there is still room to put your photos. And there is that. Now you could powder the sticker if you wanted to, but I think we're good how we are. And that goes like that. I, of course, used a corner rounder at the top. I think that just makes it look nice. So that is the completed back of the inside front cover and front of page 1. All right, now we're going to decorate the back of page 1. So remember, it's got 2 flaps, and we've got this piece of card. Now, of course, you could make this any size. If you had a 3x4 cut apart, you could make it large enough for the 3x4. Either do it 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, or a little bit larger, depending on how many layers you're going to have. So for that, I started with some cream colored cardstock, and I cut 2 pieces that are 1 7/8 by 2 5/8. So I will cover each side. And of course I have magnets, so I'm covering those magnets. I probably shouldn't have written it this dark on the back, but I can add something to that. All right, 2 5/8 by 1 7/8, cream colored cardstock. So this is going to be the front. And I have a lot of layers for this. Several layers. Then a piece of black that is 2 1/2 by 1 5/8 to go on top of that cream. Now you don't need to do as many layers as I do. I just like the look of it, especially because this is the focal point. And then this is 2 1/4 by 1 1/2. I'm using the 6x6 paper with the bees on it here. So there is the front. All right, and let's put the other papers on. So I have 2, actually, let me add these pieces. So these are 1/2 inch by 7 7/8. It came from this paper, and I just cut down right in the center of 2 rows to get 1/2 inch piece. Now, because it's black and it's a white core, you will need to ink the edges. Otherwise the white shows, and I don't like white showing when I'm using black cardstock as a base for the album. So one on each side of the opening. Okay, and then I have two pieces of this paper. This is 2 3/8 by 7 7/8. And I just inked the edges of this with the antique linen. Now there is enough room on here to leave a space between the two, between these two. Now here, I'm going to leave a space, but that means I'll have to doctor up here because of course I used some tape just to hold down that magnet. So I don't want the shininess of the tape to show. So I'm just going to peel off just a little row of it. So now I can put this down. And there is an orientation to this, so make sure you have it right. I was going to use this bee paper, but I'll use it somewhere else. Thought that bee paper was just fabulous. All right, so that'll go there. So there will be a 1/16 of an inch gap between these two pieces. And that will go to hold it. Now I probably will put a sticker or something there as a focal point, but I will wait till I get all done. All right, so now inside I've got two of these that are, wait, these are 2 3/8. Did I tell you they were 2 3/8? These are 2 7/8 because of course I don't have the 1/2 inch border strip. You could if you wanted to. The reason I didn't is because this gives you a good spot for journaling. And if I had that 1/2 inch strip, it would take away some of that journaling spot. So I'll put one of these on each of the sides. I need to put something underneath so I can see the edge of the paper and make sure I have an even margin there. Okay, so now for the center part, I cut 2 photo mats that are 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. And obviously there's not enough page for 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. So I'm going to put it down on the bottom of the page, a 1/16 of an inch from the bottom, a 1/16 of an inch from the side, and I am not going to adhere it in this area. So that way you can still put a photo on here. So I'll do the same with the top one. Turn this paper around just so I can see. So 1/16 of an inch border, side and top. Grab my boom folder and burnish a little bit. Okay, and then for this part, this is 1 1/2 by 3 1/2. It actually was what I had left over when I cut these, I think, which was amazing that it was the exact right size. 1 1/2 by 3 1/2, so 1/16 of an inch. So you want it to match up with the bottom of that photo mat and the side of this one. It is not perfect, but it is close. And do the same for here. Because I probably would have made it a little bit bigger. Now, where this overlaps, that's a good spot to put something. And so I would just adhere it to the very top of there so you can still put in a photo. I sort of like that, but I'm not positive. I'm going to just tack it down for now. Think about it. And I usually go through at the very end and decide exactly how I'm going to decorate the pages with any leftover stickers and things. So I'll reserve the right to change that. But this will go here, and there we have the back of page 1. All right, so the front of page 2 is simple. It's got these flaps and then the base page, and I've got a magnet in there. So what I wanted to use was this photo mat as inspiration because it matched nicely with this paper. Sort of, this is tone on tone. We've got some of that yellow ochre here. So that was my idea for inspiration. So this, of course, is 4x4. And there's several 4x4 cut aparts that you could use, but this is the one I ended up using. And I'm going to put that on a 4 1/8 by 4 1/8 piece of cream color cardstock. And then on the front flap, so that's 5x5, so this is 4 7/8 by 4 7/8. So that's going to go on the front of that. If you didn't get the ephemera, you could cut a lot of these out. That would give you a lot of great things to put on the front. All right, so we'll center that on there. And then on the front of that, we'll put that. Now I think what I'm going to do is just glue it on the two sides and the bottom, making it a possible tuck spot. I don't know if I'm going to use it as a tuck spot at this point, but if I glue it anticipating that I might, then I have the option. So I will burnish. Okay, so that is that. And then for the other flaps, I have cut several cream. Now I'm not going to use the black because several cream and several of the yellow ochre to put on the other one. So those I'll do, and then I'll show you what I've done. But for this base page, I've got this and that. Whoops, there is an orientation to that. Do I want it that way or this way? This is a bigger piece, and I always feel like the bigger piece needs to go on the bottom. Yeah, that's okay. All right, so, and I'll ink up the top. Okay, so this is 3 3/4 by 5 7/8, and this is 4 by 5 7/8. So I am going to put this at the top. This, by the way, is from the 6 by 6. That's from the 12 by 12. So let me just... So sometimes I can't see where the edge of the book is. So I just take a light color piece of paper and just put it underneath just so I have my margins where I need them to be. And then I'll put this on the bottom. So you can, if you want to, leave a gap, and that's what I'm doing. Now, I might go back and put something in to cover where those two end up. Maybe one of these. That's probably what I'll do. But the thing is, either you go sideways and put a strip of it sideways, which I don't like, or if you go this way, you're not getting a full one. And maybe I'll use the 6x6. So anyhow, let me do that and then I'll show you the finished result. All right, so here's that 2-page spread. And as I said, I still need to go back and add stickers if I want to. But so here is the front of page 2. Again, this is open, so I could put something in there if I wanted to. And of course, these need some stickers or something. And then this will come down like that. I did use what was the branding strip. So I used the one that had that pattern on it. And there's white, so I cut it down with just a little bit of the white and inked it up. So I think that sort of separates these, yet it pulls everything together. Yeah, this does need something here as a focal point. So I can't use this because that's the same as that, but something like that would be good. Maybe just honey. I don't know, but I'll go through when I'm done and do that. So that is what I have for those 2 pages. All right, so for these set of pages, and by the way, so we have sort of a belly band and flaps. Now these flaps are quite large. If you wanted to, you could cut them down. I'm going to leave them because that way you can put a good sized photo on here. And this will open like that, and then there's a flap there. So my inspiration for these pages is actually this paper. Sometimes I'll use a focal point like a 3x4 cut board or a sticker, but in this case, I just love this paper and I wanted somewhere in the book for it to be front and center. So I am going to put it here. Doesn't mean you can't put a photo on there. You could, but I'm not going to cover up this part, and this is going to go on the flap just like that. I mean, it may round the corners. I don't know. All right, so on to this page. So knowing that, I looked to see if I could find something to coordinate and help me reinforce that focal point, and there is this cut apart. So that would be nice here. It's a little bit, I want it a little more square, so what I'm going to end up doing is cutting off where it says beautiful day. So that is what I'll do for that. But in the meantime, I am going to start covering the pages. So for here, this is 3 by 4.5, so I cut 2 7/8 by 4 3/8. I cut 4 of those, so those will go on there. That'll cover up the magnets. I was going to leave a spot for extra paper here or actually on the side. I decided I'm not going to. I'm just going to cover it with green. So then, as you already saw probably, so for the flap, I'm going to use, this is the 6x6 paper. I cut it down to 4 7/8 because it's 5 inches wide, so 4 7/8, and then this piece is by 5 7/8, and then I cut down a strip of this from the 6x6, so it's 4 7/8 by 7/8, and then I'm also going to use this sticker. So that came from the sticker sheet. I cut it down to 4 7/8. I have another one here. So I'm going to do the opposite pattern on here. Oh, I think I am. Let me cover this and then we'll get back and I'll show you where we are. All right, so here's what I have so far for the back of page 2. So on our magnetic belly band, I cut 4 pieces of this green solid. I cut it 2 7/8 by 4 3/8 because it's 3 by 4.5. So 2 7/8 by 4 3/8. And I just use the green solid. For that focal point, I cut out that cut apart. It had a beautiful day on the bottom. I just cut that out. So it left me with a 3 by 3 1/4 piece. I cut out a piece of cardstock, so that's 3 1/8 by 3 3/8. And then on the back, I just took a little strip of that green solid, cut it down to 3, and it's about 1/4 inch because I'm going to glue it here, so a little bit will show on the top and bottom. I just thought it would be better to have a little bit of paper covering it rather than nothing. So I'm going to glue this onto here, right over to the side. So that will go on like that. And I'll burnish it. So that makes a nice focal point. And I could, if I wanted to, take that Beautiful Day and cut it and mat it and put it on here. I might use it later on, but not right here. Okay, so that's that. All right, so I glued this, but we'll glue the second one together. So again, this is from the 6x6 paper, and you get 2 of them in the sheet. So this is 4 7/8 by 5 7/8. This flower strip is cut from the 6x6 paper. This is 7/8 of an inch. It's 4 7/8 by 7/8. And then this sticker is just about 3/4 by 4 7/8. So I put it on that way. For this one, so we'll do that together. Now I'm going to do it sort of in reverse because I want this sticker. Let me cut it, pull out all of the extraneous pieces we don't need. I'm going to have it on the bottom to sort of match with what we have here, just so you have 2 layers of the scalloped. I don't know, just thought it would be interesting. Now you could do it the exact reverse, but I'm going to put this down first. I'm going to go right to the bottom just so you can see the pattern. Oops, not enough room. And if you want, you can add glue to the sticker. These stick real well, but I might go back and add glue. All right, so we have that, and then we have the 7/8 by 4 7/8 flowery paper. There really isn't an exact orientation to this, although I did turn it over, so the 1B that we have looks like he's not upside down. So I will put that down, leaving a 1/16 of an inch. And then, does that give me enough room? It sure does. And then I will take this green, and I'm just going to edge it because, again, it's that dark color going on the black paper. I don't want the white core to show. Am I the only one? Do you guys do that too? So anyhow, I will put this on. Yes, that is pretty. But sometimes when you have a focal image or a design, if you repeat it too much, it's not as important. You know what I mean? It doesn't pop. So I will line this up. 1/16 of an inch on each side. And next we're going to do the inside flaps. They're going to be the same, just opposite. So I am taking a piece of the cream cardstock, and I've already inked up the edges. And I'm going to put that justified to the top, whoops, and over to the left. The other one is justified to the bottom and over to the right. So this is going to be justified to the top, over to the left, and I guess you want to know what size this is. Four and a half by 6.5. So I'm going to put this over to the top and a 1/16 of an inch away from the edge. You want to make sure it's on straight, and you want to make sure this will still close, which it will. Now, I could have centered it, and then what that means is you would have to cut 2 really small pieces, and that's why I, instead of centering it, I just justified it over, and that actually gives you room to put a sticker at the corner. All right, so then here we have a piece of green cardstock that is 3/8 of an inch by 6.5. So I'm lining it up at the bottom. and over. And then for the bottom, this is from the 12 by 12 paper. I'm going to turn it this way so the B is right side up. So this is, it should be 4 7/8 by 1 1/8. I feel like I need a little bit more room, or this should have been a little smaller. So in any case, I will go ahead and put that on, glue it on. I'm going to just tack it on right now, just so you'll see what it is. Now I don't have magnets on this because the belly band holds it together. All right, so that is those. All right, now the base page. This is fun. So again, I liked this pattern, so we're going to use this. And what I'm going to do is cut into the corner of this using an X-Acto. I don't want that leaf, so I'm going to stop at the leaf. But to strengthen this paper, I'm going to take a piece of packing tape and put it on the back. As a matter of fact, this is not, if you have heavy duty packing tape, you only need one piece. This is not heavy duty, so I'm going to use 2. I'll burnish that real well. This paper, by the way, is 5 7/8 by 7 7/8. Then I'm going to take my X-Acto, and it's staying about 1/2 inch away from the side and at least 1/2 inch away from the bottom. We're going to cut around the flower. Now, is this the ideal piece? No, it's not. I probably could have used this, but it's too far up. If I had planned this page around this, I would have cut it differently, but it's what I have, and it'll be okay. So I'm going to just follow the contour of this leaf. Not this leaf, this flower. And I'm going to just sort of ignore this little leaf piece. And now I'm going to cut down along this leaf. And I'm just going to stop right there. Now I want to make sure it goes through, so I'll turn this over. And then I will guess a little Q-tip would work, but I'm going to take a little bit of black ink and using just one of these foam pieces. I'll push that in. I'm going to ink the edge because, again, I don't want that white cord to show. There are some things I'm not picky about, but I guess this is one of them. I'll push that in and make sure I get the inside. Okay, there's that. All right, now I'm going to glue this onto the page. But before I do, I'm going to take this, how did I cut this? Like this. And just glue this first, just so I have white showing as opposed to the black. You could use a scrap of paper, but at this point, I don't know what I'm going to have left. I'm going to ink it a little bit just so it's toned down a little. And just glue this in such a way that it's not going to show. There we go. And then what I want to do is glue this part and along the bottom. I don't want to glue here. I don't want to glue on this side. So I'll add glue around the perimeter. And around down here. Now, because we've got this non-porous tape, if you wanted to, you could add double-sided adhesive, and I'm going to go here. But I'm not that worried about it. All right, and then I will line this up on the page. And burnish. Now, this will make a great tuck spot for a photo mat or a photo. Really, if you put a photo on here, that would be gorgeous, because now we're really pulling out the flower, which is what pleased me about this paper to begin with. So this will go like that, that'll go like that, and then there we go. So there is the back of page 2. All right, for the right front, so we have just 2 flaps. I rounded the corners of this flap on the left, and for the inside and outside, I cut 2 of this paper from the flowers, and these are 4 7/8 by 7 7/8. Now again, this was my inspiration piece, so I didn't add anything, and I don't know, probably won't add much to the decorating of the page, just because I love this paper. I don't know why. It's just a pretty flower, and the bees are pretty, and the tones are muted. So of course we have to remember to round the corners on this. At this point in the game, I had purchased 2 of the collection, and this is when I said, okay, I'm going to need to cut into the second collection. So, and I knew I was going to. I just I just was trying not to, seeing could I do it with one, but no, it's too big of an album to do it with one collection. All right, and then the flaps are easy. These are both 2 3/8 by 7 7/8. So for the outside, I had this piece that has the flowers, but I wanted to break up the pattern a little bit, so I'm using something a little different. It's a smaller pattern, but it still has the flowers on it. So that'll go on this side. And then on the inside, so I'm going to use the green rating on the inside. This is from the 12 by 12. And again, it's 2 3/8 by 7 7/8. And I suppose you could use that side if you wanted to, but I didn't want to have too much of that pattern, or else it doesn't look as pretty. So that goes there. All right, and then for here, so although I like to have my photo mats 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, I did have to cut this down so it would fit. So it's 5 7/8. So if you have a 4 by 6 photo, you're going to have to cut it a little. This top piece is 3/4 of an inch, and again it's 5 7/8. Then I'll put the photo mat in, and usually there's not a problem in cutting down a photo. You usually have a little bit of room on the side, you know, extra sky, well, not sky on the side, but you'll have some room on the side. And then for the bottom, I have yet another piece of this green rating cardstock from the 12 by 12. And the reason I didn't want to continue to use the flower paper is because now I can use a sticker from the sticker sheet that has the flower on it. So that is another reason why you want to alternate and not just use that one piece of paper. So there is that. So let me grab the sticker sheet. And see, there's this set of flowers here. And I thought that was just perfect to use. Here. I really would have liked if it went this way, and I guess we could. I am going to take a little bit of powder and put on there and add a little touch of glue just because we don't want the stickers to come off. And we'll just add it there so you still could add your photo underneath that. So that is the front of page 3. All right, let's work on the back of page 3. So what we have is a top flap and a large bottom flap. Whoops. So what I'm using is this paper. So here, this is going to be on the front and this will be on the back. Make sure you have the correct orientation. So the size of this is 5 7/8 by 6 3/8, so you'll need 2 of those. And then for the top flap, I'm introducing this pattern, so you'll need 2 of those, 5 7/8 by 2 7/8. And then the base page is 5 7/8 by 7 7/8. Let me start by adding the glue for the base page. Yes, I have to just introduce patterns. I don't want it all the same pattern, or that would be pretty boring. All right, so I'll get some glue on here. And this, of course, is going on the base page. Alrighty. Grab my bone folder and burnish. All right. So for the inside, or for the top flap, so it's just the back of this, sort of like the journal paper. I don't know what you would call it. I guess it's like a journal. That goes inside. And I'll burnish that when I burnish this. But again, these are 5 7/8 across by 2 7/8 because it's a 3-inch flap. And this gives us a lot of opportunity for adding a couple of stickers. All right, so there's that. And then for this bottom flap, this is going on the inside, so we get to see that pattern. And these are great because you can add a photo onto here. But if not, great room for journaling. So again, make sure you have the proper orientation of these. It's easy to get mixed up when you have a flap. And then for this, we will put this here. Now, if you wanted to, you could cut into there. It's just the pattern, it was hard to determine where I would cut, and I didn't want to introduce cutting the same flower that I had done previously. So I just decided to keep it simple and just add it to the page as is. I also could have rounded the corners, and again, I just decided not to. Just, I don't know, just with the patterns and everything, I just thought it'd be nice not to. Now you could have it closed like that, which is probably how I will do it, because this page, the front of page 4. So for the inside of the pocket, I'm going to use the back side of this. So you can put in, and the measurements are 5 7/8 across, and you can put up to 7 7/8. Now this piece happens to measure 5 5/8, and it is a scrap piece from after I cut the other things. And I don't mind using a smaller piece for inside a pocket. Just make sure you get it over the flaps. And there we go. And then for the front of the pocket, We have this piece which is 5 7/8 by 2 3/8. So I like how these pages come together. I like it a lot. And once you put a nice piece of ephemera or a journal card inside, it'll just pull it all together. So that is the back of page 3 and the front of page 4. Okay, on to the back of page 4 and then the front of page 5. So the back of page 4 has these flaps. Of course, I already have my magnets. So what I'm doing is introducing this pattern, and this is a cut apart. Now, since I've decided to use 2 sets of the collection, I've got this twice. Actually, I might have also gotten it with the 6x6 paper as well. I did, because, and the way I can tell is this one actually has a little texture to it, and this one has no texture to it. So what it is it's the same thing I used on the cover, this one, but I liked the outline of this, and that to me went nicely with the black and white pattern here. But I didn't want this saying, and I certainly didn't want it sideways, so I will cover it. So we're going to start with this piece. This is what I'm covering it with. This is from the Cream Solids. It's 3 1/4 by 2 1/2, and I did ink around this. And when you put it on there, it really looks nice. You don't know that it is covering up verbiage that is portrait style as opposed to landscape. And then as you see here, I added a sticker. Now there's 2 similar stickers. One has the flowers and one doesn't. And if you add a couple of bees, it'll work itself out. So we've got this, and I can add the sticker to it. But on this, I'll put onto this 3 1/8 by 4 1/8 piece of black cardstock. Now you don't have to treat, when you have 2 elements on one page, you don't have to treat them the same. And I don't always, because number one, I usually don't have paper to do that. But sometimes it's sort of nice to be able to treat them the same. And again, since I was using the paper, now I want to make sure I get this lined up. So this will go like that. So I'm centering it on here. It's really about 1/2 inch from the side and 1/2 inch from top and bottom. So there is that. And also another thing is when you put on the sticker, you can, if you wanted to, ink it a little bit so it blends in. Now I don't mind that it doesn't blend in, because I don't mind that it stands out a little. I do like this black and white paper. All right, so I'm going to put one here on the top, center it on there. Oh, by the way, I did use my punch. It was from the We Are Memories, and it's the scallop punch. And I did both the scallop on both of the pieces. All right, and he'll put the one on the bottom. So you guys know that I have my glue that I keep in a jar with some paper toweling that I keep moist, so the tip of the glue, that fine point tip, doesn't dry out, and so the glue comes out readily. Well, when I stop and start a session, sometimes my paper toweling is not as wet as it needs to be, and so it'll stick to my tip. So if you see it, that is why. All right, so there's that. Now on the inside here, I am using this paper, and it's just the honeycomb pattern. I don't think I have this pattern in the book, at least not in a large. It's not really featured on a page, and it probably won't be at this point, but I might put it on the back of the book. And of course, this base page piece is 5 7/8 by 7 7/8. All right, now I have a choice. Do I want this off-white here, or do I want the yellow? I think I'm going to do the yellow. And so I need to brown the corners with the scallop. And then we'll put this on. I had almost decided I was going to use the beige. Now it's a different color than that cream cardstock that I've been using. It's got a little more green to it, but it's okay. I mean, it still works. And since I've introduced this using the paper that I have here, then it would have been okay if I used that. But I think this works just as well. I'm going to turn this over and burnish. All right, so that's it for the back of page 4. Now the front of page 5 has a lot of room for photos. It's also sort of like a pocket. And you're thinking, all right, what am I going to do with this? I was thinking, so if you had like pictures all in a row, like somebody going into a field of dandelions, you can snap pictures of them walking into the field, picking up a dandelion and starting to blow it, and then it flying all in the air. So you could put one here, one, you know, and then like a major picture. I don't know. I just thought you could use the smaller format here for sequence pictures. So anyhow, knowing that, let's take care of the base. So the base, to match it, to coordinate with this page, is the same hexagon, bee comb, what would you call it? Comb? I don't know. Honeycomb? I don't know. Anyhow, this is going to go, it's going to slide in because this is actually a pocket. And perfect. Perfect, perfect. All right, so there's that. And then what I have for this is you will need 7 pieces that measure 5 7/8 by 2 3/8. So I have several different ones. Now the first one I have is this, which is going to go on the front. The black and white of this coordinates with that. Now you could use the same pattern if you wanted to, but I liked having this because this coordinates with the sticker that we have here. So that's why I used that. So there is one. And then, so if I do, so I could do these 2 here. And then all of those here. Or I could do I'm just going to keep it simple, and I'm going to do all of the yellow here and the 2 beige on the other side. So I am going to go in fast motion because this is just gluing 7 pieces that are 2 7/8 by 5, 2 7/8? 2 3/8, sorry, 2 3/8 by 5 7/8. So go ahead and cut and glue. All right, and then I've got a cut apart that I might put in that pocket. And of course I have to cut that down, but so that is what we have for the back of page 4, front of page 5. Okay, for the back of page 5, it's pretty simple. So for inside the pocket, this is 2 5/8 by 7 7/8. Outside the pocket on the right, this is 3 1/2 by 7 7/8. I have a 1/4 inch strip, so it's 1/4 by 7 7/8. Then I have this cut apart, which is 3 by 4, and a piece of black cardstock, which is 3 1/8 by 4 1/8. This is going to be the focal point for this page. So I'm just going to center that on our black cardstock, and we're good with that. I am going to take this, which is the other side of this. What I did was I cut this paper down to 7 7/8, and then I cut 3 1/2, and this is what I had left. Whoops. So this is for the front of page 6, so we'll put that aside. But in any case, so then I had this, turn it over, and there we go with that. So this goes inside the pocket. Okay, now on the outside of the pocket, so I have this little strip. Again, it's a 1/4 inch by 7 7/8. I think I had it when I cut the pieces for the previous page. So I'm going to put this on the left side, right near the opening of the pocket. There we go. And then this with the bees is going to go on the right side of the pocket. I sort of like these bees. On this paper, at least. Maybe not in person. I don't want to show you the next page because we have to get there. Okay, and then this, I'm going to glue, so overlapping this pocket, but it's going to be centered on the page. So I don't have to worry about adding paper to the side because you're not going to lift it up. You're not going to see the back of it. But so we take this and just center it on the page. I like it. Don't you like it? Okay, so now I don't like this page and I'm going to have to fix it. So I've already glued this down and I'll tell you what the measurements are. So I cut down some of that honeycomb paper, that's the word, 1/4 inch, and then I cut 4 pieces, 3 5/8 by 1/4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then one piece that is 5 7/8 by 1/4. Then this inside piece, the bees, and this is a different bee pattern, as you can see. It's 3 1/2. I probably could have gone 3 5/8, or maybe in between. So maybe 9/16, 3 9/16 by 3 1/4. Now the reason I don't like it is I don't like this piece. Can you imagine how that would look without that piece? I like it better than with that piece. We will fix it. All right, so anyhow, here is the base piece to go down first. Okay. All right, so now you have a choice. If you like this the way it is, then you'll need two pieces that are 3 7/8 by 3 7/8 for the back. However, I'm going to cut this off. It's still going to work because, number one, I have enough room, the magnets are there, and there's enough overlap that this will still overlap. So, you know, I make these plans. I put them into play, and then I look at it and I say, no, it's not the look I'm going for. So I'm just cutting that off. See, doesn't that look better already? I just feel like it coordinates a little more. I feel like this sort of, I don't know. I'll have to turn this over. Now I could have used a craft knife to cut this, or even scissors. I probably could have used scissors, but as you've seen before, I can't draw straight lines, so I can't cut a straight line. Putting it on here. And very carefully cutting it. So there we go with that. I like that much better. All right, let me get paper and cover the back. Okay, so if you cut yours down like I did, it's 3 5/8 by 3 7/8, and I used the honeycomb paper. And I think that looks nice. Oh, I guess I could have used that, yes. So if you want to, you can. This will look fabulous with an insert in there. And I also would like to see maybe a chipboard element here. And of course something in that pocket. But that is it for those two pages. All right, so for the back of page 6, we're going to start with the paper to cover the base. And so I chose this. Now I know we've used it before, but I liked it and I'm going to use it again. So 5 7/8 by 7 7/8. Now this bottom piece has 6 flaps, and the size of these are 4 7/8 by 3 7/8. Now I have not used this paper, so I cut this out for the front. 3 7/8 tall, 4 7/8 wide. This was cut from the 6 by 6, and I will put that on there. And then to cover these, I just have the yellow ochre. So I will go ahead and put these on real quick. Okay, so now for the top flap. So I have this piece of pattern paper that I will have. Do I want to do, trying to decide if I want to round the corners. You know what? No, because I've rounded the corners of that and I don't want it to be identical. So it's the back side of this 12 by 12 paper, which is a pretty print, isn't it? So we'll put that down. Oh, by the way, this and its corresponding piece, which goes on the back, is 4 7/8 by 5 7/8. 4 7/8 by 5 7/8. Yeah, I could have done that side, but that's okay. And you know, now when you consider how many of these little flaps, you have this one and all of those, I mean, think of how many photos you can get in here. Yeah, I like it better. This goes down and that goes like that. All right, so now back inside cover. So I have two pieces, so I'm using the 12 by 12 paper with this on it. Now this, I'll probably cover this up so you won't see it, but it'll be there. But in any case, this is 6 1/4 by 7 1/4, 6 1/4 wide by 7 1/4 tall. Now I do have magnets on here, but you could use other types of closures if you wanted to. You could use the 2 circle closures, but I am keeping it simple. All right, so here's the second one. That is that same size, 6 1/4 by 7 1/4. I could have used solids, but I decided to stick with this because nobody will see it, and it'll make a good background if you wanted to put a photo on here. All right, so now for inside, I have another piece of the beige. So it could be as much as 8 1/2 or maybe 8 3/8, but this is 5 by 6 3/8, so it could be 6 3/8 by 8 3/8 if you wanted to go all the way down, but I didn't feel the need to here. So I'll stick it inside the pocket and inside the flaps, so anything else you put in here will easily, oops, get in there, easily go in. And again, I'm okay for this as a background because we're going to have things in the pocket, so it'll be perfectly fine. And then for the pocket itself, it's this piece, which this one measures 6 3/8 by 3 7/8. Now double check your measurements on these pockets because, you know, my flaps I make sometimes a little bit smaller. So you'll want to make sure that when you're covering the pocket, it will be perfect. So there we go with that. So can you imagine if I did have something here? Let me see. I know I have some. I'm looking for something that goes like this. See, that would look nice on there if it wasn't for the fact that the bee was sideways. But you know what? All I have to do is put a sticker on top of it if I wanted to. And I sort of like that. And maybe put another sticker in the center that is the beehive. Or even fussy cut one of these out and put it there in the center. I have not gotten that far. All right, what I'm going to do is the back cover. And then what I will do is go through and decorate, and then I'll show you what I have done with stickers, cut aparts, embellishments, and whatnot. So the outside back cover. I have several pieces of paper. Oh, and the spine. Spine is easy. I am just doing a plain piece of paper. It's 2 1/2 by 7 7/8. All I can tell you is when I put on the spine piece, I do use a lot of glue on the edges, and you make sure you burnish it really well. So I will add a lot of glue. I used to use double-sided tape for the edges, and either or would work. All right, there's that. Uh-oh, did I do that upside down? No. That's the cover. Okay, so now for the outside back cover. Let me move the book out of the way because we can just work on this. So we have a piece of cream paper that I did ink around the edges. So of course the book is 6.5 by 8.5. So the first layer is 6 3/8 by 8 3/8. The second layer is black cardstock, which is 6 1/8 by 8 1/8. So I'm going to put that on. Now the reason I have so many layers is twofold. Number one, it gives you a lot of interest, but also so I could use 6 by 6 paper on the back. Because when I purchased this kit, I also purchased the 6 by 6 paper, just thinking I would like to have the different sizes so it would create some interest. I could do my repetition and pattern. And it gives me some more paper, but not a whole paper pad. So that is why I did that. All right, then this piece, which I'm going to put on the bottom, is 6 by 4 3/4. So that's going to go on the bottom. It is the back side of that gorgeous paper. So yeah, I'm going to have an 1/8 of an inch border here. And then this piece. So I finally am introducing this piece. Yay. So this is 3 1/4 by 6. I feel like it needs a little more inking. Now, I could have used the 6 or the 12 by 12 paper with this pattern on it, but I didn't. You could. I sort of like the finer pattern on here, because to me this is visually heavier than this is. Number one, this has weight on it, and the pattern is, I don't want to say dainty because you'll get the wrong idea, but finer. I mean, you know what I mean if I say finer? So finer. So this overlaps this piece a little bit. Now, I originally had, I just put this on some black cardstock. What do we want? Do we want it this way or do we want that? And is the black cardstock a little too heavy? Here's a border strip. If I were to ink that, sort of like this. So I'm going to ink this. Just to tone down that bright white on here. Otherwise it would stick out like a sore thumb. So we need to cut this down to, so what is this? It's about 1/2 inch wide. We need to cut it down to 6 inches. Is that right? Yeah. So what do you think? Is that good? I sort of like it. Like I say, it's a little more toned down. And we get to use up our scraps. So I like to use the rule of thirds. I like to have, it's not exact, but 2/3 on the bottom and 1/3 on the top. So I could have moved this down a little bit, but then it would be more 50-50-ish. So it's more like 2/5 and 3/5, but it's closer. So there is the back outside cover. And now I am going to just take a bunch of glue and add it to the back. All right, before you glue it, make sure you have the right orientation. And then once you put it down and you see that the black of the base of the album, it makes those other layers really stand out. And then you could put a sticker in the center, which I probably will, and a sticker somewhere here on the side. Yeah, I didn't do much with that. See how this gets gunked up after it's just a little glue, so I use my glue eraser, adhesive eraser, to take it off. So that's why I don't like to put the cover on till the very end. I need to glue this down, but I will do that after I get it on. So there is my outside cover. And then finally I'll do the hidden photo mats and then one final walkthrough. All right, so the final thing we're going to do is make the hidden pocket pages. Now, you don't have to have these. They are sort of optional. You don't even have to put them in, but if you wanted to, you could glue the pages together or just leave it the way it is. I've done that before. So they're going to look like this when we're done, and I use 2 different implements, and I'll give you at the end a way of doing it without. So I use this tab punch board, and I use this tab punch. They're both from the We Are Memory, where does it say it on here? Oh, We Are Memory Keepers Company. So for the black cardstock for the mat, you'll need a piece that is 7 3/4 by 6, 7 3/4 by 6. And what I do is I cut out 6 in this case of these and place them on the different pieces of paper to figure out where I want them. And they're going to be about 1 1/8 inch apart from each other. And then I mark where the center of each one is. So there's a little tick mark there showing you where the center is. Now on my punch board, I've already marked the center. And the way I came up with that is I punched a tab and I fold it in half. I'm not going to do that to these because these are my good ones. And I figured out where I want. If I want an extra 1/16 of an inch on each side, I figured out where that was, and I made a little tick mark on my punch board. It's right there. So, knowing where the center is, and I know I want the center to be there, so I match up my little tick marks, punch that, flip it over, and punch here. And then with the tab punch board, you use this thing. If you want, you could use the scissors. Sometimes the scissors gives you a better cut, but just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to do it here. I'll move this out of the way and these out of the way. And now my little tab. Oh, did I want to do the bees? I think I wanted to do the bees. So that little tab is going to be smaller than what my little tab that I punched is going to be. So I'm going to glue this on. Now you have to sort of pay attention to the orientation. I mean, I wouldn't go crazy. It's just a little thing. And for the bees, it didn't matter at all. But just pay attention. If you have something that's got verbiage, you just want to make sure you have it right. Okay, and then I also cut out 2 pieces for each one, and you don't have to do this if you don't want. That is 7, that's 7 3/4, that's 7 5/8, and that is 5 1/4, So this is 5 1/8. So I will glue one of these on to the front side and the back side. But this gives you room for a 5 by 7 photo, a 4 by 6 photo, or even a couple of smaller photos on one page. Or you could put a photo and then journal on the bottom. Now you don't have to use this. You could use pattern paper. And I'll talk about at the end of the video, or I already spoke about it in the beginning, how much paper I used. So if you wanted to get 2 complete collections and instead of using plain cardstock, you can use the pattern paper. That would be fabulous. And then all you have to do is insert these into the pages. And your book is done. Now, if you don't have the tab punch board, cut it 7 3/4 and cut it 5 3/4, and then just round the corners and add the pattern paper on top of it with rounded corners. I have done that as well because that's got a nice look to it. So that is the last step of decorating it, and let me do a quick walkthrough. So here we have the cover. I did glue these down just to make sure they don't go anywhere. You could put elements here. I didn't have anything that I really was nuts about, so I'm going to leave it plain. It's got pattern paper, and that's okay. Then don't forget we've got that hidden page inside, and I did not do anything to it. There is room here for a tuck spot, and I could put something in there. I'll have to grab something. So there is that. Now, front page, so here we have this. That's a great photo mat for a 4 by 6 picture. This is glued down as well. And you know, could I put another element like a bee on top? I sort of like the simplicity of that page. And then here we have this, and this will open like that, and this comes down, and this will open like this. So there is your photo mat, room for journaling or smaller photos, room for large photos, and here we have room for a couple of small photos or more journaling, or both. And then of course we will have the hidden photo mats on all of the pages. But I'm not going to put them in because then I take them out while I did the walkthrough and it gets redundant. So there is that. Okay, so here's the back of that. So I layered up, there's a round sticker, and I added just one of the chipboard bees. This comes off and that'll open like that, and I did leave that there. I did not go crazy with embellishments. I played around with it, and I just sort of felt simpler is better. So I did have this little tuck spot, so I put this in there, and then this will open like this, and that will open like that. Just put one little bee there, and so that gives you room for a couple of photos as well here and as well here. This opens this way, and this opens like that. Room to put a photo there, or definitely a photo here. I added the sweet as honey little sticker, another picture there if you wish, and another picture down here. And then this is the page that we cut into the paper, and there is just a journaling card in that little tuck spot. And of course you can add photos here if you wish. So there's that. That is beautiful paper, isn't it? So this will open like that, that'll open like that. We've just got the flowers here and the flowers there. You could add a photo there and maybe add some small photos, maybe like, you know how there you can put 4 photos on a little photo strip. That might be fun. All right, so on this page, this will come down, and we've got that, and then that says be humble. That'll come up, and that says be the best you can be. So it gives you still room to put photos. That'll go down lots of. So we have be humble, be the best you can be, and then be happy. And then we have a 4 by 6 journaling card there. All right, and here is this page with this these two flaps. Now again, these stickers were identical, but I put one B in the left and one B in the right. And then you can add photos to there. I added one B sticker there and room there for the the photos. And then we've got all this, and like I say, you can add a sequence of photos if you want, and maybe journaling here. It's open at the bottom, but it still makes a good little tuck spot sort of pocket. And I liked this to go with it. The black and white, to me, accentuates it. I did put this as Sweet as Honey. I backed it on black cardstock and fussy cut around it. It's got the same honey hive, the hive element, but that one's colored, which ties everything together. And then here we've got a couple of 3x4 cut aparts, and they look really pretty inside there to go with that cut apart. And I added this, I'm not sure about that, but this will open like that, that will open like that, and I've got a couple of elements there, and there's that. Oops, this will go first, this will go first. And then this will come like this. Now I added this on, and it's got a little tuck spot, so I made this little cut apart into a tag, used some chenille ribbon and tied it there. So there is that. This will come up. So again, room for photos and room for photos on the back. And this will come up. I added this as a little tuck spot, so you could add your little photo in there. So this will go down, that'll go down, and then we'll put this back in its little home. And then for the inside back cover, we've got it like that. So there is a good wide pocket, room to put all the photos, all the ephemera, all the memorabilia that doesn't fit in the book, a couple of photo mats as well. And you could add photos to here if you wanted to. But I just left it pretty simple because in this case, the paper really tells the story. It's just gorgeous. And there is the back. I ended up not adding a sticker to it. I sort of like it plain. And there's that. And there we go. So that is it. That is the final video on how I decorated and added all of the paper and did all the things to this 6.5 by 8.5 mini album. The file is in the Ko-fi shop. I do have all of the measurements, including how I decorated it and did all the matting. So if that is something that holds you up, you can purchase the cutting guide. So that is what I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. It was certainly a labor of love. It took quite a while to do, but it was fun to work with this gorgeous paper. So thank you again for watching, and have a fabulous day.